For all you dreamers, fortune seekers, travelers, and adventurers. For all of you who search for better opportunities, who chase a brighter future in distant lands. For all of you who dream of retiring in comfort in your home country, of giving your family the good life they deserve. For all our overseas Filipino workers, fulfill your dreams now with Aboitisland. For over 2 decades, Aboitisland has nurtured the dreams of thousands of overseas Filipinos. With our more than 25 thriving, masterfully designed communities, from Cebu to Nueva Ecija, from the hills to the beaches, from townhomes to vacation homes, from dreams to reality. For all you who travel the world in search of your dreams, find them all right here at Aboitisland.
8 billion of us share our planet, and it is estimated that more than 1 billion adults smoke. While the risks of smoking are well known, most smokers still don't do what's best: quit tobacco and nicotine altogether. And many of those don't know that better alternatives to continued smoking exist, or have access to them. So many smokers who would otherwise continue smoking wouldn't know or think to change. Our message is simple. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. If you don't quit, change. We believe everyone deserves better. We believe adult smokers deserve access to better alternatives and all the resources they need to make an informed decision. Action from smokers and those who love them can change things. So stand up, be heard, and add your voice to the calls for a better future. Unsmoke your world.
Welcome to Eastwood City.
I want to be like Mama when I grow up. Mama says learning can take us from where we are to where we can be. It can change us from who we are to who we can be. That in teaching minds, we also end up teaching hearts. Thank you for taking care of Mama Mina so that she can inspire more people to do more.
The Philippine Daily Inquirer would like to thank the following sponsors for making this live stream event possible. Aboitis Land, creating better ways to live. Medicard, prescribed by doctors. MegaWorld. PMFTC Inc., delivering a smoke-free future. Rockwell Land Corporation, where we go, great things grow. We'd also like to acknowledge the organizations that have partnered with us. Thank you to... We'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Inquirer Project Rebound webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer. I am Texa Maniego, editor of the Inquirer Property section, and with me this afternoon is Dax Lucas, the Inquirer business writing editor, who will be my co-moderator for this live stream event. The Philippine Daily Inquirer and its sister companies introduce Project Rebound in the desire to empower Filipinos amid these difficult times and to do its part in helping our economy bounce back. We have been doing this by sharing insights from experts and success stories that are meant to inspire others to recover and thrive. This is also why we are here today. To know more about Project Rebound, let's watch this video.
The COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting lockdowns have dealt a heavy blow on the economy. Millions of Filipinos were left jobless, thousands of companies were forced to close, and thousands more have had to downsize to ride out the downturn. But all is not lost. Almost a year into the crisis, the Philippines has begun its journey to recovery with stimulus measures and policies in place. Filipino companies, groups, and individuals have also shown their resilience and are slowly regaining their footing. The Philippine Daily Inquirer, along with its sister companies, seeks to do its share to help the Philippines bounce back from this unprecedented crisis by doing what it does best: tell the stories that empower the Filipino. Through Project Rebound, the Philippine Daily Inquirer will share expert insights and inspiring stories of how businesses can accelerate their recovery, how to retool and recalibrate to survive and even thrive amid the COVID-19 pandemic in collaboration with the government, civil society, and the private sector. With its 67 million strong reach across multimedia platforms, the Inquirer Group is indeed in a favorable position to inspire a rebound from the crisis. Together, we can and will overcome.
This afternoon, our topic is riding the next wave of the property sector's growth. We all know that the pandemic has given many of us a rare opportunity to step back and reassess our immediate and broader physical environments, whether it be our homes, our workplaces, or our bigger communities. So what we want to do today is to give our audience a better perspective of what the current property sector environment looks like, and hopefully a peek into what it will look like in the near future. What we also want is for our audience to come away from today's session with ideas on where we should be heading going forward. Tech.
Thank you, Dax. Thank you for providing our viewers with a few insights of what we'll be discussing this afternoon. But before we introduce our guests, we would like to give an exclusive offer for our viewers. You can get a free 30-day trial of the Philippine Daily Inquirer's digital edition, Inquirer Plus. We are flashing the details on your screen so you can see how to get this free trial. You can also visit shop.inquirer.com.ph to know more about Inquirer Plus. And now, Dax, it's time to introduce our guest for today's session. Our first speaker is Tyler Staton. Tyler is a co-founder of Talox, a cloud software that helps Asian landlords move their leasing and asset management online. Tyler has worked in the Philippines, Indonesia, Australia, Canada, and Singapore, and has 9 years of experience helping real estate and construction companies adopt digital solutions. Good afternoon, Tyler.
Hi, Tech. Thanks. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Tyler. Now we have our next speaker, Professor Grace Ramos. Professor Ramos is an architect, an environmental planner, and an academician. She obtained her Doctor of Philosophy in City Planning from the Seoul National University in South Korea, her Master's of Science in Urban Development Planning from the Bartlett School of Architecture, the University College London, the United Kingdom, and her Bachelor of Science in Architecture from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She also underwent training on urban development housing at the University of Lund in Sweden, and she has been in the academe since 1992 and as professor of the University of the Philippines College of Architecture. Good afternoon, Professor Grace.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. I'm coming in as an urban designer, hoping to be able to discuss how physical spaces, designs for these are evolving and how all of these changes translate to real estate language of prices, development trajectories, and buying preferences. While others may argue that design equates to cost investments that are not worth pouring resources into, I say good designs affecting physical and mental health must be interwoven with public services through local planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Grace. And I'm really looking forward to your insights, especially with the so-called new normal in real estate. Now, our third speaker is Ms. Vien Tionglico Guzman. Vien is the Vice President of Rockville Land and General Manager of Rockville Cebu. Previously, Vien was head of Rockville's marketing team, worked on expansions as business development head, and served as project director for Rockville's first project in Katipunan, the Arton. Now, she is at the helm of 32 Sanson by Rockville in Lahug, Cebu, and Aruga Resort and Residences in Mactan. Good afternoon, Vien.
Hi, Tech. Hi, Dax. Hi, everyone. Nice seeing you. Looking forward to an exciting exchange of experiences over the past year today.
And for our final speaker, we have David Rafael. David is a respected real estate industry veteran who brings with him 33 years of extensive experience in the residential, industrial, and commercial segments. Over the course of his career, he has held various leadership positions in some of the most well-regarded and successful real estate firms in the Philippines and abroad. Joining Aboitiz Land as the president and CEO in 2019, he is at the forefront of the company's digital transformation journey with innovations focused on improving customer service and experience, while embodying Aboitiz Land's promise of creating better ways to live. David holds an MBA from the Darden Business School of Business at the University of Virginia in the US, and the bachelor's degree in philosophy from the Ateneo de Manila University. Good afternoon, David.
Afternoon, Dax, Tech. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to listening and learning from the other speakers, as well as maybe sharing some of my thoughts, some of my experience in real estate, particularly during this very uncertain and unusual period in our time. Thanks.
Thank you, David. And now let's begin our discussion. Actually, my first question is for Professor Grace. Professor Grace, what were the main urban issues that surfaced when the pandemic broke out? I mean, what lack did the pandemic highlight? What major problems?
Okay, firstly, social polarization gap between rich and poor became more glaring more than ever. A pandemic, as we know, is an example of a disaster, and disaster risk is a factor of vulnerability and adaptive capacity. So how families are faring in gated residential subdivisions are definitely different from those living in the informal settlements. And lesson is that empowerment of communities through humane spaces is key to dealing with mega disasters. Another is that highly specialized cities are finding it more difficult compared to cities that are more diversified, can easily switch to other livelihood bases, are faring better. So we see that self-sufficiency to some degree is important for communities, considering that during a pandemic, production chains are broken, mobility problems are there. So places should be able to provide for themselves.
Thank you for that, Professor Grace. Now, I'd like to ask our developers, what were the biggest lessons and key takeaways from this pandemic, this unprecedented pandemic? Let's start off with Vian. Vian, I think you're on mute. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
There's one every time.
Sorry. Yeah, well, like in our experience, managing, especially that we manage live communities, we really had to, I guess, heighten our safety and security protocols. If before it was just about, making sure that our residents sleep well at night, now it's to make sure that, when they come in the buildings, when they go in the mall, even our shoppers, they're at least protected. There's a sense of protection from the protocols that we provide from getting infected from the virus. And we believe that, of course, in every crisis there's always an opportunity. And in what went through over the past year, I believe Rockwell has been resilient in adapting to new forms of technology in serving our stakeholders, whether it be our residents or our buyers or our shoppers. It's really a matter of adjusting fast to whatever you wake up to the next day, because everything is uncertain. Yeah.
Thank you, Ben. How about in your case, David, for the case of Aboitiz Land?
Right. The way I see the situation is, I think even before the pandemic hit the Philippines, right? Metro Manila, as well as all the other cities, were already plagued by this urban problem, no? And I think the pandemic just heightened it and highlighted it, no? Really, I think the basic problem of Metro Manila and all the other cities, no? All these urbanized cities, is really overcrowding. It's just too overcrowded. And what do I mean by overcrowded? I mean, there's just too much people density that are being forced to live within very limited areas now. And this causes all sorts of problems. So you've got problems in terms of basic utilities like water and sewer. You've got basic problems related to crime, related to health because of all of these social and health problems. You've got problems in terms of circulation, especially here in a country like the Philippines where you don't have any mass transit. So, the traffic is really intolerable. Then, of course, you've got a problem in terms of lack of open space. No? There's just no open space. That's why we've got so many big malls here in the Philippines, because there are no parks for people and their families to congregate. No? And eventually, finally, all of these problems will redound to a degradation of the environment. Water pollution, air pollution, all this trash. No? So all of these problems, I think, have been there for many years, and it was just exacerbated by this pandemic.
Okay, that's interesting, if not sobering, overview of what we have right now. Now, I'd like to zoom in a little into the nitty gritty of the industry, and I'd like to bring in Tyler and circle back to Professor Grace on this one. Tyler, I'd like to ask, what are the new and unique trends that have emerged and are now reshaping the property landscape? How can technology help a sector that is very traditional, very old school? I mean, what trends have you been seeing?
Well, I think what happened was the pandemic accelerated a lot of trends that were kind of already unfolding. So we were kind of watching real estate markets move from offline to online. We're watching business operations go from manual to digital. Data and information, which was kind of inaccessible or opaque, is now becoming much more accessible, transparent. Demand for space was what we'd call demand for traditional space, and now there's kind of an increasing demand for flexible space. Then also in the real estate services, fragmented, less traditional services are starting to professionalize. And so we see this kind of institutionalization, professionalization trend. So what you see is broadly across the whole industry, everything's changing and it's changing all at once. And the pandemic kind of brought that to a kind of conversion point. And so we're not going back. These trends are going to continue. And so it's up to the landlords it's up to the industry, landlords included, to kind of look at what the future is going to be like and start planning for that. Change doesn't happen by itself. People need to have a vision for what the future can hold, and be able to communicate that vision so that the industry can start moving in the right directions.
Tyler, I was in a similar forum just a few days ago. It's a lot like selling cars, isn't it? I mean, it's an experience that used to be very physical. You had to be there. Now you have to rely on technology.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of analogies in other markets, right? Real estate tends to be kind of slow to change. So we do have the advantage that we can watch what happened in other markets. So exactly like you mentioned, cars, we've seen airline booking move from travel agencies online. We've seen music move from buying of a digital record to streaming online. And so as an industry, we can look at those and see kind of how they unfolded and what were the kind of nuances that caused it to play out the way it did. And I think that gives us an advantage because we get to learn from those, and we get to pick maybe the more positive aspects of that and really double down on them, and maybe also avoid some of the less positive impacts that other industries experienced when they went through that transformation.
Okay, Professor Grace, let me tweak the question slightly for you. Do you see any opportunities to reshape the landscape to make it more positive from the earlier sobering assessment we had around here?
Oh, yes, definitely. Negative as the general situation may seem right now, there are really so many windows of opportunity to reconfigure in the field of space design, architecture, and urban design. There are so many possibilities. There's now increasing trend over co-created spaces. I'm not saying this was not there before, but the trend towards involving people from other disciplines. Like if I'm designing a public facility, I'd bring in people from the medical field, psychologists, even visual artists, so that my design will be whole in terms of being able to bring in the different dimensions that will define livability. So you may say, investors may say, that means hiring more consultants, but cost minimization does not always redound to higher profits. People pay for quality, and being able to bring in these many dimensions of livability will change the directions of buying in terms of preferences. And then we're seeing all of these trends towards translating the physical space into digital platforms. We're seeing more of virtual tourism. I'm a professor. We've shifted to online learning, and this has redefined the physical space that we refer to as the university. Augmented reality, all the robotics technology are all reshaping, reconfiguring the types of spaces that we have been accustomed to. And possibilities are, people are thinking more about having second homes, vacation homes, alternative places to go to, mobile homes even. In general, people are looking for amenities such as greens and open spaces. These are added features that would increase levels of quality of life.
Okay, so happy to hear it's not all doom and gloom. All right, let me go to our two resource speakers from the property development sector, Bien and David. Okay, have you noticed any shift in buyers' preferences over the past year or so? What are they looking for now when they want to buy property or invest in property? Bien, please.
Yeah, definitely, people are now looking for more open space. So we saw that also when we launched Rockwell South, Carmel Ray last year. There especially when at the beginning of the pandemic, people realized that living perhaps in apartments could be very constraining, given all the protocols. So it's open space. It's also density. If you are living, for example, in an apartment model, it pays a lot that you have enough space because now you are working from home and your kid is studying. You will have to have enough room. If your gym locks down, you will have to have enough space to work out in your apartment. So those are the realizations, I think, of our customer in choosing where to invest next. I think also in terms of leisure, formats have shifted. I don't think anything is impossible now with technology. So let's say for wellness, exercise is now available online, which means that wherever you live, you will actually be looking for a place that can provide you with very good internet connection, because also of your work, because also of your children who are going to school. So these things have been very, these insights have been recurring over the pandemic, over the past year.
Okay. David, does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah. Well, I think a while ago, Vian mentioned this pandemic as presenting, aside from the problems, of course, the opportunities. No? And I want to just stress on that, the opportunities, because we're a fairly small developer compared to the other big boys. And for me, this pandemic has sort of leveled the playing field for small developers like ourselves, no? Because of three trends that I want to highlight, no, which have impacted buyers' preference. Number one is this whole work from home, hybrid working arrangement, and all that. No, what I think this work from home arrangement, I think, is going to be here to stay. Maybe it's going to evolve in a little bit, but it's really going to be here to stay. And I think what it does is it has redefined the definition of location. Remember, the most important in real estate is location, location, location. But I think with this work from home trend, location now is completely redefined. Whereas before, it had to be in a CBD, in a Makati, in a BGC, close to mass transit, close to schools and all that. Suddenly, with work from home, that is not as important because you don't need to go to work, right? So that's why it redefined the definition of what a good location is. Now, people are now open to buying properties outside of these, in the peripheral areas, in North Luzon, in South Luzon, and all that. So I think that's one very positive trend that I see. No, the second trend is again this whole expectation of what a real estate product should be, because now people are now putting a lot of emphasis, a lot of importance to health, to open space, to quality of life for their families. So that translates into, whereas before it was almost de facto, I gotta live, even if it's in a small 25 square meter condo, high density, high rise, so long as I'm near the MRT station and all that, I'll settle for that. But now they don't have to. They can for that same amount of money, they can buy a 2-3 bedroom house outside of Metro Manila. So, and the third trend I want to talk about is really this whole digital trend in terms of doing transactions, the processes, customer interaction, and it's really gone online. It's gone are the days when there will be so much paper, so much documentation, and real estate is a very document-heavy kind of business. So again, because of that trend, and for companies, for developers like ourselves who are able to pivot, this has really proven to be a really a big advantage, so that we, in terms of being really more competitive.
Fantastic. Tech, so many insights packed into so few minutes.
Lex, I just have a follow-up question, because all of our panelists are talking about technology, but is the Philippines actually ready for it? I mean, given the kind of internet connection that we now have, I mean, are we really ready to embrace technology as part of real estate? And considering that Filipinos are very much experiential, I mean, they want to see it, they want to view it, they want to actually physically go and look at the property that they are buying. This can be answered by either Vian or David.
Yeah. Vian, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think yes. I mean, definitely the country still is challenged in terms of bringing in the type of technology that can really support, especially the population that we have. But I think in one way or another, especially in many little ways, technology has really evolved to support the way we live today. In terms of real estate transactions, we have customers who were no longer able to return to the Philippines because of lockdowns in their countries, and we were actually able to make them appreciate their units, whether for lease or for acceptance over Zoom. Technology has enabled us to send them numerous types of platforms where they can view their assets online, and just like what David said, transact also online. So whether it be sending documents or making online payment transfers, so much more platforms are now available, thanks to people like Tyler who make things happen. It's actually amazing. Yes, David.
Thank you, Vian.
Well, I'll just give you a short answer there. All I can say is, with Aboitiz Land, our sales during this whole COVID has actually surpassed by 50% our pre-COVID sales. That's all I can say. So I guess that tells you that there is a high level of acceptance among. Of course, I'm not saying that it's all because of digital. Maybe our products have also just been more responsive to their needs. But I have no doubt that this is an indication of the high level of acceptance of the buying public, to adjust to a more digital type environment.
actually, Dax, if I may just add, that was exactly my thought, David. I was thinking, is it because you were offering more of the horizontal type of developments, which over the past few months, we've seen heavily enjoyed a good following from our home buyers. Well, thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts with us. If you're watching and you have questions, please feel free to send them in and we'll ask our panelists to answer them for you. But before we continue with the next part of the program, we will have a quick break, so stay tuned for more.
The Philippine Daily Inquirer would like to thank the following sponsors for making this live stream event possible. Aboitis Land, creating better ways to live. Medicard, prescribed by doctors. MegaWorld. PMFTC Inc., delivering a smoke-free future. Rockwell Land Corporation, where we go, great things grow. We'd also like to acknowledge the organizations that have partnered with us. Thank you to... We'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy.
And we're back. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Inquirer Project Rebound webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Moving on to the last part of our online discussion, we have more questions waiting to be answered. So let's start off with this one, Dax.
Okay, this question is from the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation. Let me tweak it a bit and start with Tyler first. Tell us more about the new trends in consumer behavior you're observing in your particular field.
So we're focused mostly on commercial real estate. So obviously the big trend here is everybody's working from home, which is a big experiment. And it's kind of unclear how that is going to affect the industry in the long run. You can imagine a world where everybody works from home. You can imagine a world where everybody gets sick of working from home and comes back to the office. And probably the more likely scenario is it's going to be somewhere in between, where there's people who work from home and the office and spend part of their time in each. And so, one of the trends that we're seeing is maybe a diffusion out of the city centers to the more outskirts areas. So as opposed to having a large office space downtown, you might have a smaller office space downtown and several other locations around the city, or you may open up in even some smaller cities as well. So the real question here is, what does that mean for demand? And I think that generally we're still pretty bullish on commercial real estate. That what you'll likely see is while some companies downsize, maybe some companies who previously weren't in the market to have a space downtown, they'll decide to have a smaller space there. So I think the message here is nobody really knows, but I think the uncertainty is kind of what drives the need for innovation. And so whatever that future happens to be, the industry needs to become nimble, become more agile, and be ready to meet whatever demand that happens, whatever the demand happens to be.
So hybrid is the future. That's you're betting on that, and I guess it's great news, huh?
Yeah, I would say like somewhere in between. I think there'll be industries where they'll primarily work from the office. There'll be companies that primarily work from the office, but I don't foresee this trend of work from home go away. It may be less prominent in some of emerging markets where the technical infrastructure is not yet caught up to really enable comfortable working from home. So we'll see more of a trend to the office. But on a global scale, that's the way the industry is going, and that's not necessarily a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a reality. And so the test will be who can best adapt and win out in whatever that new future is.
Okay, I can live with that. Let me adjust it slightly for Professor Grace. If I am looking for a place to stay in right now, what should I be looking for? Professor, your audio. There you go.
There we go again. Technology. Okay. Buying decisions from all social classes would be governed largely by pricing structures, pricing strategies, and based on the hedonic model, any package that is out for sale is a combination or a bundle of benefits. Price is determined by the quality of the structure itself. Is it big? Is it small? Does it have so many nice features? Second component is location, which David was talking about earlier. Location with respect to the city core, where you find all the offices and all the amenities, the shops and workplaces. And third component is neighborhood and environment quality. And these are the factors that designers, developers would mix and match, would be manipulating to come up with the best price that buyers would be attracted to or would be willing to pay for. And the market, if I were to buy, look for select from different options, I will be doing a trade-off analysis and be asking myself, would I rather have a 4-bedroom house that is very, very far away from my workplace, or would I settle for a very small studio type unit from where I would just be walking to my workplace? Would I not mind being very far away from the nice malls if I can be surrounded by chirping birds, all the greens, forests around me? So buyers would be weighing options based on all of these possible benefits given the different packages out there for sale. And given this pandemic experience, we're now seeing more opting for packages that offer good neighborhood and environment quality. People are looking for parks, open spaces, playgrounds for their children, open spaces where they can stretch their legs in, run around, jog, and exercise. So these are the other factors that will matter aside from the features of the structure itself. And
No,
Yes.
Professor, I was just going to say, before I hand over to Tech for the next couple of questions, your earlier point about open spaces now being integral to these developments, the pandemic has really turned the model on its head, because these used to be viewed as costs, right? Property
Yeah.
developers would want to eke out as much peso, every last peso from every last square meter. Now you have to think of it as an investment to be able to make your product marketable.
Right. And there have been studies supporting the claim that providing for these open spaces do end up uh, though investors are able to recoup investments because they're able to attract, for example, in malls, those store owners who are right in front of the atrium, the open area with greens and all, are able to attract more customers. So at the end of the day, all of these translate to pesos and dollars, and investments are recovered.
All right, Tech, over to you.
Taking off from Professor Grace's insights, I'd like to ask our developer friends here. In your case, how did the shifting preferences from your buyers change the way you create your developments? What kind of adjustments did you have to make in your blueprints for you to be able to better cater to the needs of the market for the so-called new normal? Maybe we can start with David this time.
Okay. Tech, I was just going to, that's an interesting question, because in the case of Aboitiz Land, I don't know if you were just lucky or we sort of foresaw this pandemic, but the projects that we have now sort of fit into the trends that I had mentioned earlier. So for example, I was talking about location and how location is being redefined away from the central business districts like Makati towards more growth areas in North Luzon, Calabar Zone, and all that. And that's where all our projects actually are. We've got 3 projects in North Luzon. And as you know, with Clark, with North Rail, with all of the infrastructure projects leading towards the north, it's perfect, right? So that's where that's a new growth area. Similarly, we've got projects in the south, in Batangas, and already Calabar Zone is a very highly developed, the infrastructure, the road infrastructure going to Calabar Zone is set, and it's improving. So that worked to our advantage. Number 2, I talked about how now the preference is going towards house and lots, right? When you get, whereas before people would buy 5-6 million for a 24 square meter condo, they can actually buy for the same amount a 2-3 bedroom, 120, 180 square meter 3-bedroom house and lots in these growth areas, which is where our projects are. And finally, in terms of the process, right? We were early adapters of all of these digital processes, from selling to even our construction. Almost every aspect of our back end has really been, we did an early start in terms of a digital transformation. So in answer to your question, we sort of had an early start. It wasn't really such a big change for us, because we sort of were prepared, and we had one step ahead.
Thank you, David. Now, in your case, Bien, Rockwell is already known for its safety and security features, your open spaces, amenities. Would you say that you'd still had to go back to the drawing table and make a few tweaks in the plans? And also, recently, you've made your presence felt in the horizontal division. Would you say that this is a very good move for Rockwell as well? Bien, you're on mute, sorry.
Right, again, actually, if at all, the past year has enabled us to really diversify our portfolio, and allowed us really to penetrate emerging cities, which I think is very important, because given what what happened during COVID, right? As Professor Grace was saying, people would really rather also decentralize already. And there are emerging cities, whether it be south of Metro Manila, north of Metro Manila, in the Visayas region, Mindanao. For us, it's being able to provide new products, like a new set of products to the market. Like, for example, the way we introduced the villas as vacation homes here in the provincial market of like in Cebu, or the way we were able to introduce horizontal lots and commercial lots in Bacolod, which is which is going to be like similar to Rockwell Center, in the future. So aside from having the usual condo developments, mid-rise, open space, we're now able to provide like a mix sooner rather than later of because of the opportunity that arose from the crisis.
But just to follow up, in terms of the safety and security measures, did you have to make major adjustments to better cater to the needs of the so-called now normal?
Oh yes, definitely. It again, as I mentioned earlier, it's no longer just the physical sight of a security guard that would make you feel safe. It's all bound toward technology, because you really have to manage the community. And in Rockwell Center itself, we're a community of what, about more than 10,000 residents dwelling in the center. Even here in Cebu, we have our live community. So making use of technology in the day-to-day, like for example, how property management now operates. It's no longer the physical forms that the guests would have to fill up. It's all based on QRs. It's how our HR as employees, it's how HR looks after us, also always through technologies, to different types of technologies, whether we're in the office or working from home. So yeah, these different types of securities, I think, were ramped up because of the different tools that were made available in the market.
Thank you, Vian. Dax, we've heard it from our developer friends. We would like to hear the thoughts of Professor Grace and maybe Tyler, if you have a follow-up, Dax.
Yeah. Well, basically, we've seen how the pandemic has reshaped the property landscape. I'd like to ask Professor Grace, how can we transform our environment for the better? I mean, we've seen the nascent signs, right? Bike lanes and walkways and all that. But I'm sure, taking the broader view, there's something more we can do. What is that something, Professor?
We need not reinvent the wheel. If we look back at, I started with my intro, I talked about how architecture has evolved throughout human history. We've been able to adapt to changes, and strategies that have been adopted in the past to respond to health crisis included providing quarantine or isolation facilities, better utility systems, like waste management systems, water systems, and mobility systems that cater to non-motorized transport. It's not just all about cars and trains all the time. We need to cater to bikes and the walking public. This is something that should really be included in modern developments, because right now we see many roads being retrofitted to accommodate bike lanes, but in many cases it's too late because you encroach on what was supposed to be allotted for the cars. So it doesn't work that way. The intent should be there from the very beginning. They should not come out as afterthoughts. And this is the importance of long-term planning, foresight. You don't just respond, you have to prepare and really plan.
No, Professor, sorry. This is not in the question, but I just have to ask it because it's been bugging me for the longest time. Does a place like Metro Manila have hope? Or would you rather just do a clean sheet, start from zero somewhere else?
Yeah, as an urban planning student, my thoughts were along the line of wishing that I can erase the whole of Metro Manila, delete it from reality, and recreate it from the ground. But planning doesn't work that way. Realistic planning, for plans to take off, you have to start from what's there or what are the baselines. Otherwise, you're thinking in utopian frames, and there's no way you can take off. Your plans will remain on the drawing board. And I think that's the problem with many of our plans. They're just too grand, too detached from reality. You really need to take off from what's there and make the most out of the existing urban assets.
Okay, let me adjust that question a bit for Tyler, and let me throw in a question for you from our Facebook feed. Okay, Edsel Dolores is asking for Tyler, commercial and real estate is now downsizing. Is it now downsizing as you see it? Is working space going to be the new trend? And so from that one, I'd like to ask, what role is technology playing in your particular field?
There's a lot of anecdotal information out there that would suggest that some office tenants are downsizing. But if you look kind of across the whole industry, that's kind of being backfilled by industrial space, which is also commercial space. So as someone moves online, perhaps a store doesn't rent a retail shop, but they still need to get their products out to the people who buy them. And so, perhaps we're just seeing demand for space shifted shape a little bit. And then as far as flex space goes, I think that as a landlord who is built their business on traditional spaces, flex space is not going to be something wholly new. So they would lease out space to a co-working or flexible space operator. From the landlord perspective, that's still a leased space. Anyone coming in and using my building is good. So it maybe alters the usage of the space a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily remove the demand for that space. Now, as a tenant myself, I do want to have more options, more freedom, more flexibility when I'm leasing space. So I think there will be a continuation or expansion of that model, but I don't think it's doom and gloom for commercial real estate. I think that there's plenty of demand, and there will be plenty of demand off in the future. Again, it's just a matter of how that demand is shifting and how landlords, how agents are reacting to that shift and repositioning assets or offering new services. I think there's very, very healthy market ahead of us.
Quick follow-up, Tyler. What does the tenant-landlord dynamic look like now? Is it skewed particularly heavily in favor of one or the other?
Well, certainly it's a tenant market now. Landlords are trying to do what they can to keep tenants, particularly retail tenants, are having a hard time paying rent. So there may be concessions that are being provided. But on the whole, tenants sign long-term lease contracts, and this is a blip which maybe moves the power a little bit in the tenant direction. But on the long-term scale, it doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be an explosion of demand in a couple of years, and that will again be a landlord market. So these things are really difficult to predict, and I think one of the exciting futures that presents us from technology is one where we're able to capture a lot of this information and data and be able to know the answers to this I think that's a massive opportunity here in the Philippines and abroad is, understanding the demand or customer data better and reacting and adjusting your spaces to that demand. So I'm looking forward to a future where, our industry is far more tech savvy, far more using data. And I think that's a better industry for landlords, but it's also a better industry for tenants.
Excellent. Tech, over to you.
Thank you, Dax. We're still seeing a number of questions from our Facebook page, but I might need to ask the final question now. How crucial is it to create new city centers or growth areas? And with the same title of our webinar, how can we ensure a successful ride to the next growth wave? Maybe we can start with Vien or Sir David, and then after followed by Professor Grace and Tyler.
For me, it's about time that we really build develop more city centers. The fact that you are decentralizing will give also an opportunity for quicker economic growth. There's a lot more job opportunities. And in your question on how to make sure that we're doing it right, to me, I think I would give a lot of value to quality. It's not just about shoeboxes or blueprints that you put out there and launch as much as you can. It's really thinking through what your community would need, what are the new needs that have emerged, the trends that have emerged over the past couple of years that you will need to adopt in terms of sustainability, in terms of managing your community, or in terms of developing newer office spaces to accommodate the learnings that we have all experienced given the pandemic. So I think with much thought, you can't go wrong with new developments in the next emerging cities.
Thank you, Vien. In your case, David, would you say how crucial is it for Aboitiz to actually start creating new growth areas, and how do you ensure that your company will be able to ride this next wave of growth successfully?
Okay. I'm talking not just from an Aboitiz point of view, but even just from the country's point of view. I really think it's very, very important that we decongest the cities and really move out to growth cities. I mean, cities like Manila, Cebu City, and all that, as Professor Gray said, it's maxed out. There's nothing we can do about it, right? So, maybe they're going to be very minor tweaks, but it will not really improve the situation. So the only alternative is really to grow and develop new growth centers. And I'm really glad. I mean, whatever your political persuasion is, but this build program of building infrastructure, the Clark Airport, all these new roads going out to the north, going out to the south, I think should be continued in the next years, because that's the only way that we can realize this objective of decongesting the cities. Moving out government offices, all that, really critical. It's very. I'm a big believer in that.
Thank you so much, David. From the point of view of Professor Grace, who is an urban planner, how crucial is it to create new growth centers, and what are the mistakes of the past that we should avoid?
Okay, so again, deconcentration and decongestion are strategies that are not new. They have been there for many, many decades. The concept of new towns, the concept of suburbia, peri-urban cities, have been there since the 1960s. And there are many new town projects that have started out as fiascos. very, very large-scale developments, well-planned, that ended up as ghost cities for many years before people started coming in and occupying these spaces. It takes a while. You don't just recreate a new city from the ground. It takes many, many years for real cities to be operational. So you don't just create something with good architecture and nice facilities and expect people to automatically move there. It has to be a total package that would be offered to potential buyers. Good architecture need to be complemented by context, schools, all of the workplaces, livelihood bases should be part of the development for these decongestion strategies to work.
Thank you, Professor Grace. In your case, Tyler, how can technology enable new and emerging cities?
Well, so I think there's two things. I think technology can be quite alluring. It seems maybe often like a shiny new toy, and people who are looking at technology or buying technology feel like a bit like a kid in a candy store. And I think what's really important to keep in mind is that it's not always glamorous. And I think that the really kind of fundamental, important first step is to get the technology infrastructure in place. So without those kind of base level building blocks, it's very difficult to kind of build and take advantage of all the new technologies that come. They would be layered on top of that kind of infrastructure. The second is that innovation doesn't happen by itself. You actually need to do something. And so for the business leaders out there, you need to have a vision of the future. You can't just say, hey, we need to use technology. It's very clear, here is the future that we're trying to create. And without that vision, it's difficult for people to put the right pieces in place to make the future. And often they end up spinning their tires.
Okay, hearing our panelists talk about such useful information, definitely we want to discuss more, but that's all that the time we have left for this Inquire Project Rebound webinar. Once again, thank you so much to our speakers for sharing their valuable insights with us. And we will be ending this online discussion, Dax, with a closing message from our speakers. Siguro this time, let's start off with David, then followed by Vien, Prof. Grace, and Tyler.
Okay. Well, I just want to say to your audience that really for Aboitiz Land, creating better ways to live for the Filipino family really is our core mission. And we continue to deliver on this promise, even amidst this pandemic. And we will continue to harness whatever available digital technology is out there so that we can deliver and really provide a sustainable way into the future. So again, thank you very much to Dax Tech and to Philippine Inquirer for allowing us to be here. And I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic that in spite of this pandemic, it's here to stay. I know that, but I'm very optimistic about the property industry. It will adjust and it will find ways to be able to prosper even during these uncertain times. Thanks.
Thank you, David.
50%, I bet you're optimistic. Bien,
Yes,
thank you. Let's hear from Bien.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Tech, Dax, and the Inquiry team for inviting me. It was a nice afternoon to have a chat with all of you. Rockwell, if for the audience, if you are interested to look into the different properties of Rockwell, we are always online. We're available digitally. You can, find us in social media, experience us online. As promised, we will continue to deliver our products with quality and, of course, be always as consumer-centric as as we always are. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, Vian. And now may we hear from Prof. Case?
Thank you too for inviting me. Bleak as the future may seem, there's reason to hope. There's always reason to look forward to better days ahead. Key would be our ability to adapt, not just adapt, but adapt fast. We think of these places that we design, construct, and sell as containers that accommodate activities that we want to happen in a given place. There should be some willingness to invest in the added features that will enable and empower people, so that as we look forward to a better future, everyone will be on board, not just those who can afford, and even the vulnerable sectors will be part of this rebound.
Thank you, Professor.
Clearly, Professor Grace, it's all about inclusive growth.
Yes.
And maybe hear it now from Tyler.
Tyler.
Yeah, thanks, Tech. Thanks, Dak. And thanks to my fellow panelists. I enjoyed the conversation. I'll echo the sentiment here. I think that the future is really bright. This pandemic is a blip on the radar, but the good times will return, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Tyler. This has been quite an interesting discussion. We're very grateful to our panelists for sharing their insights and learnings. We hope those of you who listened learned a thing or two. Dax?
That's it for our webinar today. Thank you to our panelists for their time and their insights. And thank you once again for being part of the Inquirer Project Rebound webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer.
So again, thank you so much to our viewers. Have a pleasant afternoon. And we would also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy. Continue reading the Philippine Daily Inquirer for authoritative news and features. Once again, I am Tex Samaniego, editor of the Inquirer Property section.
And I am Dax Lucas from Inquirer Business. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.
The Philippine Daily Inquirer would like to thank the following sponsors for making this livestream event possible. Aboitis Land, creating better ways to live. Medicard, prescribed by doctors. MegaWorld. PMFTC Inc., delivering a smoke-free future. Rockwell Land Corporation, where we go, great things grow. We'd also like to acknowledge the organizations that have partnered with us. Thank you to... We'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy.
For all you dreamers, fortune seekers, travelers, and adventurers, for all of you who search for better opportunities, who chase a brighter future in distant lands, for all of you who dream of retiring in comfort in your home country, of giving your family the good life they deserve, for all our overseas Filipino workers, fulfill your dreams now with Aboitis Land. For over 2 decades, Aboitis Land has nurtured the dreams of thousands of overseas Filipinos. With our more than 25 thriving, masterfully designed communities, from Cebu to Nueva Ecija, from the hills to the beaches, from townhomes to vacation homes, from dreams to reality. For all you who travel the world in search of your dreams, find them all right here at Aboitis Land.
Of us share our planet, and it is estimated that more than 1 billion adults smoke. While the risks of smoking are well known, most smokers still don't do what's best. quit tobacco and nicotine altogether. And many of those don't know that better alternatives to continued smoking exist, or have access to them. So many smokers who would otherwise continue smoking wouldn't know or think to change. Our message is simple. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. If you don't quit, change. We believe everyone deserves better. We believe adult smokers deserve access to better alternatives and all the resources they need to make an informed decision. Action from smokers and those who love them can change things. So stand up, be heard, and add your voice to the calls for a better future. Unsmoke your world.
Welcome to Eastwood City.
I want to be like Mama when I grow up. Mama says learning can take us from where we are to where we can be. It can change us from who we are to who we can be. That in teaching minds, we also end up teaching hearts. Thank you for taking care of Mama Mina so that she can inspire more people to do more.